game. It's the best thing about parents ever. But yes. Well, not to her face. I don't want to get anyway, hey, look at this. It's Thursday, October 8th and Friday, October 9th, and we're recording it for the regular class. If this video started with me saying Mama Boo Boo, pay no attention to that. We have no idea who Mama Boo Boo is. That could be literally anyone. What's important is that we're trying to educate children. And so we're going to be getting into a story about voices and a kid who goes insane. Speaking of insane children, what's up, Zachary? No, what you can do though is one, those lights don't work. Two, close one of your eyes, and that's like having one of the lights off. If you're having trouble closing your eye, I have a pencil. Come here. There you go. See? It's called teamwork. Tristan, that's not your face, Tristan, because if you're not there, I'm going to have to kick you out of class. I don't want to have to say, Mom and Tristan, that you were skipping class. That'd be awful as I'm trying to help a child out. And they're blue kids. And I won't see you guys again, the B.2. And we talked about visiting the library and stuff like that. And then the kids at home, we already been there, except for the virtual kids. Wyatt, your second head is adorable, although it looks slightly fuzzy. We took pictures of people already on there. And there we go. Talked about B.2, the torturing kids from that one. And to do the quick review of notes things, when we get back into story and our fun things. Apparently, according to my kids earlier, and they might be lying to me, they said the story today, one, was good, and two, apparently I'm really good at reading things because I use voices and emotions. And they're like, Mr. Broviak, it felt like I was really there. I'm like, special child, you are there. And he's like, see how good you are? But anyway, well, you can tell because my mouth, you can't see my mouth moving, but you can see my pen moving when I charge you points when you yell at me, Blaze. I'm the only one that gets to yell in here. And then there, let's go through and do a quick rewindy thing. Blaze, be fast.
I'm pretty sure nobody in the last class said anything about you being good at reading, and especially some people actually didn't like how you screamed at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, you'd be completely wrong, but a good try. But it's okay to be wrong. The most important is that I'm never wrong. Speaking of children that we get a chance to yell at right here, let's see how well you guys remember things from a day ago. I feel the same way. On the off chance you happen to have notes in front of you that have nothing written down at the bottom, why, yes, you probably should be writing these things down there at the bottom, he says, staring at a kid trying to help him out. Mr. Broviak, you're so subtle. Thank you, Owen. So first off, with exposition, what is our easy definition of exposition? Nicely done. So we start off with our boring beginning stuff. And this story we're going to get into today has a very short, boring beginning stuff because it jumps right into rising action. What is rising action? Good job, Ellie. One kid paying attention. It's going to be the exciting stuff. Apparently, it's just an Ellie and I game, and the rest of you guys are like, Mr. Broviak, I didn't pay attention at all. And then we get to climax. And what's our, wait, hang on. Those of you who are at home who paid attention, if you want to be, yes, Antoinette, this is the part where you get a chance to yell at me. For those of you who can't see how big of a smile Antoinette gets on her face, as soon as she finds out she gets to yell at me, she's like, Mr. Broviak, it's a dream come true. It's the yelling at Mr. Broviak game. Yes, you're going to get a chance to yell at me. Ooh, probably for like the next 5 minutes, it might be the yell at Mr. Broviak game. So let's see what happens. And then we get to climax. And what is our definition of climax?
Major OMG.
Nicely done. That is our major O. Ermagurdy, I believe is the French way of saying it, is Ermagerd. And then following action, the definition of following action is, nicely done. Sorry, my issue is that sometimes I say a thing and I can watch like a delayed action and all of a sudden the kids at home are like, and then they start laughing, they've already moved on. I start laughing at them laughing, it becomes like a laughing loop and it's very distracting. What's important is that you're all horrible children. And then we get down to resolution. And what's our definition of resolution?
Boring ending stuff.
Ending stuff.
They could be all the time. And so the boring ending stuff. And so nicely done. So there, and then I think we did mountain. We did do mountain. Good job. So what's the boring flat part at the very beginning called?
Exposition.
Good job, Antoinette. You beat the living kids who just stared at me and blinked. You let an internet person beat you guys. Goodness. Good job, Antoinette. After exposition, what comes next?
Rising action.
Look at that, Antoinette. You inspired them. All it took was that for me to mock those children. They're like, Antoinette's not better than me. I'm like, prove it. They're like, game on. After rising action, we have
Climax.
look at that, nicely. And then after that, it starts getting not as exciting, and we have
Falling action.
Running action.
and the last one is
Resolution.
yelling at me yet. We have just a smidgel of yelling left. So then we got into our story of voices. Did we start reading that with you guys already? Just a smidgel, correct? I believe that's a scientific term. Enough that we know who. Oh, yeah, forgot. We got foreshadowing. But in case you don't have foreshadowing written down, he says, you might want to write this down also. What is our definition of foreshadowing? Antoinette, Ellie smoked you on that one. Too late. Ellie's already flexing on you and doing a dance. Ellie, stop dancing. They have no idea that you're dancing. And so again, the clues in the story that tell you what's going to happen. By the way, I have realized I don't like the fact that I have to do virtual and in class with the way we have to do the kids dying. But watch out, Algier. There's a person sneaking up behind you right now. I don't want you to die. Okay. But the fact that I can make up whatever I want about what these kids are doing, and you guys have no idea, and I can make up stuff about you guys, and they have no idea. Basically, the fact that this gives me the chance to just lie to you brings me lots of joy. So that is like the one win we have in all of this. All right. And then we have the foreshadowing. Then to our story, which began with me yelling and freaking kids out. Who is our one main character we have in story so far?
Sam.
Nicely done. Ooh, let's see. Ooh. We don't know exactly how old Sam is, but there is a clue towards his age.
Middle to high school.
And how do we know that?
Because it
He
says
gets up early.
Are you saying old people don't get up early, Antoinette? Goodness gracious, yeah. For shame. Jerry L, nicely done. I'm going to give you kudos on that one. Way to sass Antoinette. And so, yeah, the fact that he's talking about going to school and the fact that he has the math test and things like that, that I would do. When the story begins, where does our story begin?
5 o'clock.
In his house.
In his house, in the bedroom. And then the job takes place at 5 a.m. Ooh, what wakes him up?
A scream.
And who is screaming?
His.
Nicely done. And then why was he screaming? By the way, if
Because of a dream.
You are correct, Delaney. Way to tag it. Don't answer and then jump away. Be proud, Delaney, even if you answered 4 minutes after everyone else. At least you answered. That beat the other kid staring at the wall. By the way, it felt like we were playing a really bad version of Clue on that one. I'm like, who did the murder? Sam. Where was it? In the kitchen. What did he use? And then, anyway, if you guys ever played Clue, that's what it felt like to me. And I was like, I'm killing for wait, no, I played Clue. It's okay. I thought we were.
It was Mustard in the ballroom with the clarinet.
Yes, Jerry L. We used a clarinet to kill somebody. Then we got to that part, and then before he falls back asleep, what is it that bothers Sam? Getting close. Did we not get that far with you guys?
I know.
Maybe we have more reading to do. Let's find out. Did we not get to the voices?
Oh yeah, the voices in his head. Then you ended.
You're down this road. We definitely got to the voices. And then the voices spoke to him right before, and then like right when we ended, and that was the voice that was saying, I think we're coming and dead. And that's what freaked him out. All right. Kids at home, except for those of you who are all digital, who might have printed yours off because you're responsible. You should have paper copy of story. Or you can look at screen if you want to, and you oh my God, Delaney, did a random child just jump into the room and kick you in the head? You fight back. Sorry. It's like you're at Lily's house or something. That's embarrassing. Anyway, so back to here. Those little dot things means that we're going to jump to a new location and a new scene. Oh, man. No. But I will do creepy voices in a moment, which is almost the same thing. That's what it sounded like. Sorry. They want to know what it sounded like to have me yell, but I had to surprise them, and it feels like I did a good thing because Zach just died. Now, Zach is going to be our ghostly voices. So now, little dots, we're going to jump to new scene. So now, figure out where it's taking place. It is not going to be in his house. And it is not just voices bothering him. It turns out we get to add something new.
Yeah.
His eyes hurt. He was sitting in his first period science class and couldn't believe his bad luck. Mrs. Larks was droning on and on in front of the room. I don't know, something about cells and membranes, when his eyes kept bursting into flames. Okay, well, not actual flames, but it sure felt pretty close. He was just sitting there trying not to get called on, trying not to think about what a horrible morning he had had, when all of a sudden his vision went completely white and he could feel an odd pressure on his eyelids. And then it was gone. Nothing. He could see just fine without a problem. No residual stars in his vision, no need to blink to clear his eyes. The whiteness was gone as quickly as it had come. Sam quickly looked around to see if anyone else had noticed the burst of whiteness, or if it had just been him, but nobody else seemed to be having a problem. He was looking to his left to see if Trevor had noticed it when his left eye burst into flaming whiteness. Quick timeout. No longer in his room. Where is it taking place now?
At school.
So
Science
apparently
class.
horror movie because it's taking place in science class. Mr. Broviak, science, no, that poor child. I feel the same way. Plus, instead of just having voices, it's talking about his eye going white. The best way to describe it is if you have like a completely white piece of paper, and it's just all of a sudden, whoop, like that eyeball, like all it sees is whiteness on that side. And so it goes from one side, and then all of a sudden, other side. And then he talks about the weird pressure. So it's white, and he can feel like something pushing against his eyeball. And he's like, it's freaking him out, as you can imagine it probably would. Next. Just wait, it's going to get better. Verse 5. This time, he noticed it didn't actually hurt. It just startled him and freaked him out, but there was no actual pain. He stopped for a moment, one eye viewing nothing but a brilliant shining whiteness, the other viewing his friend Trevor. He blinked to clear it, and then the whiteness switched eyes. His left eye cleared just as his right eye burst into a vanilla star. He gasped audibly as the eye change startled him. He still felt no pain, but it was becoming incredibly frustrating. Mr. Times, are you okay? A voice from the front of the room asked. He spun in his seat to see Mrs. Larks looking at him with concern in her eyes. He stared at her for about 3 heartbeats as he tried to focus with his only good eye. Mr. Times, you are not looking well. Would you like to go to the nurse? With a final burst of cream-colored light, his right eye suddenly filled with a stereo image of his left. His vision had returned. He rose to his feet, feeling surprisingly steady but scared. His vision was fine, but his mind, or his head at least, most certainly was not. Yes, ma'am, I think I would. And may I ask what's wrong? My head hurts is all. I should be fine if I can get some aspirin or something, he told her. Well, I hope you feel better. You go ahead and grab the pass off the wall and head down. You can get the homework from a friend when you get back. Thanks, ma'am. I should be fine once I get something for my head. He walked up to the front of the room and grabbed the laminated blue pass off its hook on the wall. He didn't have to turn to feel the eyes of the class on him as he walked out. Even though he was just going to the nurse, he could still feel all the attention being directed at him. He could actually feel the silence in the room as all the eyes behind him followed his progress from the teacher's desk to the door. Oh, God, he thought, this is beginning to feel like a really bad dream. They're all dead. He stopped in his tracks with his hand on the door. The voice, the one he'd heard this morning, the one he had thought was just a bad dream, the deep male voice that had haunted his thoughts since that morning. Who's dead? The thought raced through his head. Is the class dead? Over there, the voice spoke again. He turned to look, one hand still on the doorknob. The class was staring at him. Mrs. Larks was looking at him. He could hear the first few giggles erupt in different places in the classroom. Where? Who is dead? More giggles burst out from within the class. He could hear Trevor's voice asking, "Hey, hey man, you okay? Who are you talking to?" His teacher's voice again in his ears. "No one is dead, Sam. Why would anyone be dead?" She paused for a moment, then added, "Do you need someone to go to the nurse with you?" Sam vigorously shook his head back and forth. "No, Mrs. Larks, I don't need that. Did you hear the voice? The guy saying people were dead? Did anyone hear the voice?" He scanned the room with his eyes, looking for anyone nodding their head yes, but no one was. They all looked scared of him, even Trevor. "We're almost there," he heard the original soft, whispery voice say. The same voice he had first heard that morning. The voice didn't sound scary at all. It sounded soft and friendly, but it still managed to scare him. It really made him want to know. "Almost where?" he heard his own voice say out loud. Time out, pause for a moment. So in science, apparently things have continued to get creepy because not only do we have voices, what else is happening? He is. What's that? So he's having eye issues, which are going to play. Remember we talked about that whole foreshadowing thing? This story is going to end just in the middle of a conversation, and all of these foreshadowing things are going to make more sense. Like when we get to the end, that whole eye issue is going to make sense. The voices will start to make sense. My question is, do you guys start to have suspicions of what you think is happening to him? Owen? Ooh, that he's still dreaming? I could definitely see that. Jeriel, I'm assuming you're going to tell something to me.
He's in a coma, and all the whispers is just people trying to reach from him while he's in the ambulance, and then he's just remembering parts of the story. The whiteness in his eye is him slowly getting blinded.
All right. Good job, Jeriel. You're going off on a rant there. And then Zachary? And go like, oh, that will have very nice of you to admit such a fun thing from there. And so we're going to find out it's going to jump to new thing coming up in just a moment. So again, little dotty things. So we're jumping to new scene in story and introducing new issue. "Man," Trevor said at lunch, "you really had us freaked out today in Larks' class. I thought you were going to go all psycho on us or something. Your eyes were all like flipped down, and the way you kept talking about dead people and stuff, that was spooky. You sure you're okay?" Sam looked up from his sloppy Joe and gave his friend a smile. "I don't know if you'd say I'm okay, but well, I'm feeling better at least. This morning's really sucked, Trev. I don't even think I could put into words how messed up it's been." He took another bite of a sandwich and chewed slowly, looking at his plate. "Are you going to try?" The question coming from his friend. "Try what?" "Ah, sheesh, to explain it to me," Trevor said in an exasperated tone. "I haven't spoken with you since Mrs. Larks took you to the nurse. All right, you say weird stuff. That's been happening. All right, what kind of weird stuff?" Well, all right. Voices, for one thing. Okay, I've been hearing voices. Apparently from people that aren't even there. I can hear them just fine, but I seem to be the only one. Wow, voices. Really? All right, that's kind of cool. That's like full-blown crazy person stuff. I've never known a real crazy person before. Sam looked up at his friend in time to see his smile. "It's not funny, Trevor. It's really scaring me, and there are bright lights going off in my eyes. It's like I'm looking at a light bulb with only one eye. It doesn't hurt, but it's weird, and it's creepy, and I don't like it. I want it to stop." "And you're bleeding," Trevor said. "Ah, Trev, it's all been in my head so far. I haven't actually been hurt or anything." "No, man, you're bleeding," Trevor said excited. "Check out your arm." "What?" Sam asked and looked down at his right arm. Trevor was right. There was blood coming out of the crook of his elbow. It seemed to be quite a bit of blood, too. "What the?" Sam exclaimed while swiping at his arm. The arm tingled now, and it felt funny, but it didn't really hurt. He grabbed some napkins off his tray and wiped at the blood. He saw it was coming out of a small hole on the inner bend of his elbow. It was right on the vein. It was like the vein had just opened up and started shooting blood out on its own. A quick pause. So when they say inner bend of elbow, it's this part right here. So this bit, so that's the inner bit. So you have a little vein that's right there. It just pew, 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 started shooting out like a little fountain. So that's what he's talking about. That's the reaction, Antoinette. Nice to have good imagination. So that's what he's talking about, the little part right there. It's like a little water gun. Pew, pew, pew. We're just shooting Antoinette. All right. So it started shooting out on its own. All right, there we go. What's wrong with it? Trevor blurted, and then asked more quietly, hey, is there anything I can do to help? Yeah, give me your napkins. Go get a large Band-Aid. What's wrong? A soft voice asked. Sam spun in his chair to see nobody near him. Who said that? Stop fighting it! A much stronger voice resounded on his other side. He quickly looked to the side of the new voice and saw the same sight. Nothing. Losing him. The soft voice again. It sounded, what was it, anxious? Worried? He wasn't sure, but it didn't sound good. Falling. A new voice this time, but what was falling? Sam thought he missed the beginning of whatever it was the voice said, and it bothered him. Something important was falling, and it seemed to involve him. End of that scene. So now we have voices he's heard. We have eyeball issues, and what's new issue? There you go, the water gun from his arm, as he sort of fires at people. Have the voices continued? Are the voices still talking about killing him? No, now what are the voices saying? Talking about falling and the fact that whatever it is, he's fighting it. And I think I say, is that the one that says losing him or something like that? And so something about falling and losing him and fighting it, and now he has the blood. Ooh, and where was our new location? Lunch at the cafeteria. And apparently a school lunch. It is a horror story. And then right after science. The only thing that would make this a true horror story is if the next scene is in math. Uh-oh. And so apparently it is a horror story. Science, school lunch, and math. There's no way this kid's surviving. And we introduced a new character. Who is our new character? And who is Trevor? There you go. By the way, we've mentioned Trevor earlier in story. Caught that. Oh. Trevor was the friend when he was in science class, when he was like, hey, what's going on? He was in the science. So that's the same Trevor from there. So that's when he was talking about that one. But don't worry, here's where a lot of you, I keep talking about the whole, the foreshadowing clues. This next scene in math class is where, for a lot of you, you're going to have an Ermagerd moment, because it's going to suddenly make sense, and the voices are suddenly going to understand what is happening. When that does occur, don't ruin it for other people. You just get to sit there and just giggle to yourself, because you're going to figure out who or what the voices are doing to him and what is occurring. Those of you who don't figure it out, it's okay. We're going to help you out. He didn't know any of this. Sam looked at the math test again and sighed. All that studying he had done, and it was no help. None of these questions made any sense to him. It was almost like it was written in a language he couldn't understand. He looked at the first question and rubbed off the bandage on his arm. Stupid thing still hurt. It wouldn't stop bleeding. It'd been bleeding for almost 2 hours now. A stupid slow trickle that didn't even seem to stop. Sam snuck a quick peek around the room to see if anyone else was having trouble with the test. No one else was looking up. They all seemed to be writing furiously. All right then, Sam said quietly to himself. I studied. This should be easy. Let's see, first problem again. Let's see how to get the square root. Not gonna make it, said a loud voice just above his left ear. Not again, Sam moaned out loud. Make the voices stop. Tell me who you're talking about. You're driving me crazy. Sam finished his rant in a voice almost loud enough to qualify as a shout. Well, Mr. Tynes, talking during a test will drive me crazy, his algebra teacher, Mr. Benz, told him. I've heard you've had a rough day, Samuel, but please keep quiet during the test. Shock him! The voice was louder now and almost seemed angry. I'm shocked! I'm shocked! Sam shouted back at the voice. This whole freaking day has been shocking. I don't want any more surprises. If you want to really shock me, try leaving me alone. Yeah, well, that would shock me. Mr. Tynes, I am shocked also. I am shocked a good student such as yourself would behave like this. That is quite enough. I will not have an outburst like that in class, especially during the voice drowned out Mr. Finn's last few words. The voice was insistent. It was almost yelling, but not sounding like it was directed at him. Sam stood and looked around the room. Is what clear? Nothing is clear. I don't understand any of it. The pain that suddenly shot through his chest knocked him off his feet and dropped him onto his butt. His heart and lungs and chest had just simply exploded. His eyes swam with the pain. His buzzing fingertips reminded him of the time he electrocuted himself screwing in the light bulb up in his attic. He slowly looked down at his chest to see how big the gunshot wound was. It had to have been a bullet. Nothing else could have hurt this much. Nothing. No blood, no hole, no bullet, just intense pain. It hurt so much that he could do little more than just sit there with his mouth open and gawk at his own uninjured chest. No response, the voice yelled at him. What, Jesus? Sam thought. What do you mean, no response? What kind of response did you want? It had knocked him off his feet. It made his chest explode. He felt like he was dying. Clear, the voice bellowed at him. No, it's not, squeaked Sam in a whisper. I don't know what you want. How can it be clear? Who are you? Why are you doing this? Another explosion of pain blasted his chest. He could actually feel his body jerk and jump as something like electricity shot through his entire body. His vision blurred, and he could see the classroom and the stunned expressions of his classmates and teacher as they melted into the whiteness that was surrounding his vision. His hearing seemed to fade as the classroom sounds dissolved. I'm dying, he thought. So this is what it's like. But why? Why did they have to kill me? What did I do to them? Stay home, he heard the soft voice tell him as his consciousness went out. So, where is the new location? In math class. And apparently the voices are doing more than just yelling at him. Now what did the voices do? They tried to shock him, shoot him, knock him. How many of you guys, by a show of hands, think you know what is going on? Children at home, let's find out with our final scene. You're going to jump to the last scene. Let's see how accurate you are. Sam awoke and saw a white room he did not recognize. He could smell disinfectant. He heard the voices of people far away, maybe in a hallway. He tried to sit up, but was stopped by the pain that shot through his body. Oh, man, he hurt. That last shock hadn't killed him, but his body sure ached like it had tried. Oh, we lost you, a voice said from off to his left. The soft voice he had heard before. So the voices weren't done with him yet. Not again, Sam told the voice. Why can't you all just leave me alone? Because you probably would have died if we'd done that. The voices just answered him. The voices never answered. They just spoke. He slowly turned his head to that side. So, how are you feeling, kiddo? The nurse standing next to his bed asked, using the voice he had come to recognize and dread. Who are you? Where am I? What's going on? How did you manage to... He trailed off, looking at this lady who was staring at him and adjusting a clear plastic bag hanging on a pole next to his bed. His eyes followed the thin tube connected to the bottom of the bag, followed it down until it connected with his arm, connected with a needle inserted into the bend of his right elbow, exactly where he had been bleeding before. You were incredibly lucky to survive that car wreck. If you hadn't been wearing your seatbelt, then you'd have been thrown through that windshield just like you. She stopped short and looked at him again. It was a concerned, motherly look. Well, you're lucky to be alive anyway. Car wreck? Sam asked her. What car wreck? You mean the one in my dream? The nurse wrinkled her nose and gave an odd look. Well, that was no dream, sweetie. That was more like a nightmare. From what I understand, you almost died last night in the emergency room, too. Your heart just stopped. The doctors had to shock you to get your heart started. Shock me? Sam asked. An eerie thought was beginning to creep up Sam's spine and nudge its way into his brain. Yes, Sam. They had to use the defibrillators to get your heart beating again. They hadn't. Then you would be dead right now. And there we go. Well, I think you mean exciting, not just weird, but thank you. What? You mean there's foreshadowing clues throughout the entire thing, and all of a sudden it helps you out? What kind of craziness is this? Yes, Jeriel, I know you're trying to remind me to charge you points because you read ahead and you tried to ruin the story for other people. I'm aware.
I actually did it. That was literally just from the foreshadowing. That was really all from foreshadowing. I didn't even read ahead. I promise you, I did not read ahead.
I apologize for accusing you of reading. How dare I accuse a child of such a thing?
Yeah, lazy life.
All I know is the kids have introduced me to some term. It's called no cap. So foreshadowing clues in story. The Sam Sing, so let's back up. Where do we find Sam at the end of story? Where is he? In the hospital. What happened to Sam? In car crash. Now, why does Sam not die in car crash? So, but what do we know happened to other people? Who do we assume those people are? There you go. That's why we find out the whole separation, the difference. So now when you go back to story, things start to make more sense. Because at the very beginning, when he wakes up from the screaming, and he's like, I had a dream of a car wreck, was that a dream? So it's really just the opposite. The dream was the real life, and that was him getting knocked unconscious. So throughout the whole story, he's not really at school. Where is he? There you go. And before that, for the hospital, he was also at the, there you go. Because that goes back to this thing. When Sam sees the white lights, when the white light goes from one eye to the other, and then he feels a pressure on the eyes, you know what that white light is he's seeing. There you go. Nicely done, Zachary. So it's when they're trying to shine the light to see if he's alive or dead because he was trapped in the car. And so it's when they have a little flashlight and they hold open your eye and they shine the light back and forth. That's why he's seeing that. He says he felt the pressure and the white said it didn't hurt and it felt weird and one eye went completely white. That would be from the paramedics who were shining the one eye from one to the other. And during that part of the story, they're like, hey, they're all dead. Who are they referring to if they're all dead? And then they say, hey, we're coming. They must have seen the fact that there's still someone sitting in the car. The blood on his arm, when he starts bleeding from there. Nice. By the way, that was the needle, the bloody thing that was coming out from that point. What is it the voices said to him at that time? Nicely done. To stop fighting. Because I'm imagining, I'm ignoring it to the end of class. The dream thing when he was sitting there and they're trying to poke it and dreaming, he was like, and he's slapping at it. The doctor's like, stop fighting it, kid. He's like, and he keeps slapping over at it. And they're trying to like jab it in. Ooh, when they say that same time, when they say it's falling, you know, the falling is referring to. Nicely done. Referring to the heartbeat is falling. So that's the fall. Oh, and then the we're losing him referring to, there you go, the fact that he was dying. It says, those are the, see, connection things. When his chest explodes in math, here you go. Apparently, we're all doing this thing to test ASL for, there you go. And so the whole, and by the way, I think for many of you, that was when the clues started to come together with the shock him and be clear. Because that'd be the whole, him yelling back at the voices, and they just yell clear. That usually helps with me reading it versus you guys reading it. Because when I read it, I'm like, shock him. You're like, wait a minute. I'm like, clear. You're like, wait a minute. And it all starts to come together. There's more, because there's also some really creepy parts, but we're going to save that for Monday. So that way you guys won't have to have creepy parts in your head over the weekend. I have no new homework for you, just the B.2. And so other than that, I have no other major things for you. Hi, what's up, No Cap?
Was this just a big ad to wear your seatbelt? Like car safety?
If that's how you want to think about it, sure. I mean, he did wear seatbelt, family did not. Bad things happen to some. So if that's what you take away from it, yes, we will count that as a win. PJ. And PJ's getting a bunny. I'm not sure how that connects to the story. Maybe he's going to throw the bunny through a windshield. Who knows how PJ's brain works? But that's a frightening thing. Not me. I would never throw a bunny through a windshield. That was all PJ. He's over there clapping, and he's mimicking throwing a bunny through a window. And I'm like, PJ, why would you do so? They're all horrified by you, PJ. I would never lie to good kids. What? PJ, how dare you rat me out like that? All right. Home children, and we'll see you guys on Monday. Wear your seatbelts according to Jerry L. So we can help you guys out from there. Oh, y'all are gonna die.